Joining me now from New York is the Secretary of Energy, Dr. Ernest Moniz. He is a nuclear physicist and was at the negotiating table with the Iranians alongside Secretary of State John Kerry, working to hammer out the specific details of this agreement. Secretary Moniz, thank you for joining us. I know it has been a long couple of weeks, certainly doing this deal. I want to get your take on some of the news this morning. First, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said just this morning that this is a bad deal. Listen.
Not a single centrifuge is destroyed. Not a single nuclear facility is shut down, including the underground facilities that they built illicitly. Thousands of centrifuges will keep spinning, enriching uranium. That's a very bad deal. And after a few years, Iran will have unlimited capacity to build unlimited nuclear infrastructure.
Secretary, technically speaking, is what the Prime Minister said true?
Well, we certainly have a very, very different view of the facts. First of all, today, the breakout time is about 2 months. This will immediately get us over a year. It will get us there with almost instantaneous recognition of any attempt to evade the deal, and it will give us plenty of time to respond diplomatically or otherwise. So we have blocked all of these pathways to a bomb, and we should also emphasize this is not a 10-year deal. This is a long-term arrangement. There's no sunset. There will be a lot of phases, starting with extremely stringent restrictions on Iran's program. Hopefully, they will comply for a long time, build up confidence. But we have 10-year restrictions, 15-year restrictions, 25-year restrictions, and we have forever restrictions. So this is a long-term program, not something that will kind of go away in a few years.
You just said hopefully they will comply. How will you know that they are complying?
We will know because this understanding leading to the agreement in 3 months will have built in unprecedented access and transparency. We will have eyes on, principally through the International Atomic Energy Agency, we'll have eyes on the entire supply chain of uranium. Going back to the mines, the mills, we'll have continuous surveillance of centrifuge production. We'll have continuous surveillance of the centrifuge facilities themselves. We will have, by the way, for the plutonium pathway, we will have all of the spent fuel from the newly designed reactor, which produces much less plutonium. All that fuel will go out of the country. So there won't even be plutonium from that reactor in the country for the lifetime of the reactor. I repeat, the lifetime of the reactor. These are very, very strong. If they fail to meet any of these requirements, we are going to know through, again, our access and transparency, and that will immediately lead not only to us, but the international community, the P5+1, taking the appropriate actions.
One of the concerns, however, that while you will have this unprecedented access and transparency at these declared facilities like Natanz, where there will still be some uranium enrichment, what about a covert effort? How will you know if something is being done covertly?
So again, we started from the beginning to address all the pathways to a bomb: uranium, plutonium, and covert. The covert relies upon these transparency issues. What I want to emphasize is that Iran will, from day one, start complying with something called the additional protocol. What this means is they will have access not just to the declared facilities, but also to undeclared sites, even sites that may not have nuclear materials. And there will be a process, a time-limited process, in which once we establish the suspicion and go through that process, Iran will have a very short time to grant that access or will be judged out of compliance.
Also in the news this morning, the New York Times reports that the fact sheets that were put out by the two countries, that there are some noteworthy differences which have raised the question of whether the two sides are entirely on the same page. The key difference is on the question of the pace and timing of the sanctions. Iran believes that those sanctions will be lifted immediately. The U.S. has said they would be phased out. Which one is it?
Well, first of all, my understanding is that certainly in most dimensions, the Iranian fact sheet is actually consistent, but clearly emphasizes different parts of the agreement and tends to omit some parts of the agreement. If I may first give an example from what you raised originally. You said that they will have just over 5,000 centrifuges operating. They did not emphasize that that's a drop from 19,000, but even more importantly, they did not mention apparently the additional constraints. Their stockpile of uranium will drop from 10 tons to 300 kilograms. That is a 97% reduction, and that is a very, very major constraint on what they can do in terms of any possible breakout. On sanctions, make it very, very clear. The sanctions relief really kicks in only when they have complied with the core nuclear restrictions, and that's what gets us to this 2-month to 1-year breakout time. So that's when the sanctions relief will really kick in.
Mr. Secretary, Iran still remains a state sponsor of terror and will remain so. How would lifting of these sanctions, which would essentially deliver billions of dollars in new money to Iran, how can you justify that when Iran is the chief destabilizer in the Middle East?
Well, first of all, there's no question that we will have many, many more issues with Iran. You've mentioned them, terrorism, Syria, Yemen, you name it. This agreement in no way lessens the importance of our working against them, supporting our allies and friends in the region very, very strongly. The thing is, however, would we prefer to be addressing those with Iran having a nuclear bomb, or even the threat of having a nuclear bomb, versus a situation in which we have essentially complete confidence that they are either complying or face the consequences of noncompliance.
All right. Secretary Moniz, good to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nora.